So today, it's gonna be hard to kind of everyone see the video, so I'll let you know you can find it online. But I want to show a little bit of video today. It'll be loud enough for us to hear. It's basically about a man named Kyle Maynard. And Kyle Maynard actually grew up with some sort of, and I don't know the exact term, but he was basically born without arms and legs, basically from the elbows down, born that way. Congenital amputation, something like that, right? But it kind of talks about his story and basically how in 2012 he climbed to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro on literally his elbows and his knees. And so it kind of talks about his journey, about how he got there. And there's a couple of things I want to know after the video is done. It's about 10 minutes, and then I'll talk for maybe 5 or 10, and then we'll go on. So I'll put the mic down next to the iPad so we can at least put the audio up online for everyone.
I would say my purpose in life, at least from my perspective, would be to help show other people their purpose, help show other people their capabilities, help show other people their human potential.
Kyle's life, I believe, he was sent here for a reason. He may look disabled, but he's not. And that's inspiring.
I don't give up easily on things. Every excuse that we make keeps us away from the things that we want the most out of life.
It is that attitude which has brought 25-year-old Kyle Maynard to Tanzania.
I'm like hyperventilating right now.
To attempt something that at first glance makes him seem delusional. Kyle Maynard wants to climb to the 19,431-foot peak of Mount Kilimanjaro.
When I first heard it, I thought it was a joke.
It's his goal to, show the world that you can achieve any goal that you want.
Kyle's always had crazy dreams like that, but he goes out and he does them.
At home in Georgia, Kyle has long been defying expectations and taking care of his own needs, all unimaginable 25 years ago.
The day Kyle was born was, well, obviously it was traumatic.
The doctors whisked him away. In a towel, covered him up, whisked him away. And they came back to the room and they said there's some problems.
The name of the condition that I was born with is called congenital amputation. For me, for all 4 limbs to be affected, it's a pretty rare thing.
We would just put things in front of him and help him figure it out without, trying to do it for him.
My dad said that the world was not going to be tailored for my every need. So that's why he knew that I had to go and find a way to go and do it on my own.
I was there with him in the sandbox as he picked up a shovel and was trying to figure out how to dump sand on me.
I never really realized Kyle was different. I've always looked at Kyle as a normal big brother.
But unlike his family, strangers were not always so accepting.
I remember the feeling as a kid where it really affected me. The stares and the looks. I remember sitting in bed and sometimes I would just cry myself to sleep thinking about would I ever be able to have a normal girlfriend someday, or a wife, or kids, or a normal job, a normal career, and just a lot of fear about what the future would bring.
In Tanzania, Kyle's immediate future will require him to hike some 38 total miles while on the mountain.
The one fear that I have is just paying attention enough to my body to know the difference between when I can push through something and when something might really be dangerous.
January 4th, 2012, Kyle's Mission Kilimanjaro begins. Over the first 4 days, Kyle proves to be adept at climbing.
You feeling great?
Drop go.
Feeling really good. It's being more upright, more vertical, and it takes pressure off my arms.
Good job, buddy.
But the flat and downhill portions of the trail are taxing his arms to the breaking point and crushing his will.
At the end of the day, when we came and strolled into camp, I was pretty wiped. Never really done anything like this, and it's just pushing me to the brink. And
Kyle pushed himself to achieve back in 6th grade when he joined the wrestling team. Yet initially, he was fearful and lost his first 35 matches.
the realization that I had in the first match and breaking through was, it was just that my opponent was just as afraid as I was, or more. If he was afraid, then I didn't have to be.
When he was losing, it was hard on his, self-esteem and confidence, but as he started to win, he really started to become that Kyle that we know today.
By high school, Kyle had become a wrestling champ. He wrote a book in 2005, and on nationwide TV, became a poster guy for upbeat perseverance. He would leave the University of Georgia to become a motivational speaker.
My message is a pretty simple one. It is to make no excuses.
But much of the time, Kyle says, he felt like a fraud.
I learned more than anything else.
I would be happy for that 45 minutes that I was on stage speaking, and then for the other 23 hours and 15 minutes of the day, then it was, a lot of it I felt depressed. I'm supposed to be trying to teach other people how to get their life together, and I can't even pull my own together.
Then in 2006, while Kyle was at a DC airport en route to a speaking engagement, two servicemen who'd seen him on TV spoke with him. They were MPs who'd suffered extensive, severe burns while in Iraq.
And they told me that they laid in a hospital bed for a week after they had been ambushed. They made a suicide pact with each other. And they said that on the day they made that decision, they happened to see my story, and they said that's what got them to stop.
It was a conversation that would change the course of Kyle's life.
I held it together while I was talking to him, and came back to the hotel that night and just cried for hours. I think about those guys almost every day.
So, as part of his commitment ever since to the veteran community, Kyle and his team have decided to honor a fallen soldier by carrying his ashes up the mountainside. 6 years after his airport encounter, Kyle is facing another crisis. The end of day 5 brings evidence that Kyle is badly hurting. Group leader Kevin Chirilla offers a plan.
You like curveballs?
I like curveballs.
Right.
Can we just head straight up the mountain instead of going down?
Exactly.
Really? Is that a possibility?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's a new, daring route. Shorter, yes, but far steeper and more dangerous. The Western Breach, where in 2006, 3 climbers were killed.
It's steep, and there's a lot of big pull-ups, and there's no spot to put a tent if we need to push a team of 9 plus all the porters up over the Western Breach. It's a big risk. If we commit to this, we have to commit to it.
I know I can do it. I know for a fact.
Day 9, before dawn, the Western Breach awaits Kyle. As loose rocks make avalanches a deadly threat, and he struggles just to keep from sliding. As chains are attached to Kyle's feet, it is as if a lifetime of determination and effort can be seen in his every move. He has gone from 16,200 feet to 18,500 feet. Day 9 ends with the summit in reach, and Kyle pondering a lesson that the mountain has taught him.
Most frustrated I got the whole day was when I would just go and look up and see like how far I'd have to go, instead of looking back and seeing how far we'd come. I think I do that a lot in life and just in general. Just one step at a time.
Before the final push, Kyle is given the honor of carrying the fallen soldier's ashes. As the sun rises once more, Kyle trudges forward again and again, not just for himself, but to show others that they too can find a way to the top.
We did it!
Yeah! Did it, baby.
Did it.
First in the world to crawl up Kilimanjaro, Kyle.
At the peak, Kyle prepares to pour out the ashes of the fallen soldier.
Carrying you to the top of the mountain today meant a tremendous amount to me. It's an honor to be able to bring you here, brother.
Mission Kilimanjaro, Kyle Maynard's mission, is a success, a tribute to those who inspired him, to those who always believed in him, and to all those who still yearn for belief and inspiration and triumph.
I hope that if there's a handful of people that experience that desire to do something greater in their life because of this, then it's worth it.
So I had actually watched this about a week ago. There's a author that I actually haven't read his book yet, but it's been recommended to me multiple times. Steve, you might have read it, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. So this guy, Tim Ferriss, has a blog, and he recently sent out just like a newsletter. Every week he sends out like a little newsletter. And it was talking about his 5 favorite posts that he's ever written about, and one of them was this one. And it was basically, says, need some strength, watch this video, right? And so I watched it and I was like, wow, super powerful, right? And so I noticed a couple of different things. Number one, what really blew my mind is that he lost his first 35 matches as a wrestler. How many people would actually keep going to the mat after 10? After 15, after 20, after 25, 35 matches, after one, yeah. How many of us try something and it doesn't work out for us the first time, and so we just turn around and we don't do it ever again? A lot of us. There's a lot of things like that. And it's not inherently bad necessarily, but 35 times before he actually won his first match, and then he became a high school champion, right? It just blows my mind how he just had that like persistent perseverance, like, no, I'm going to do this. He set his mind on it, and he would do it. I started thinking about all the times that I had people tell me to stop doing something. And I started thinking about these people, and I started looking at their lives, and I started saying, are these people that I should actually be listening to? And the people that told me to stop things that were difficult are people that, no offense to them, really haven't accomplished anything. Really haven't done anything for anyone else. Really are just in the same place they are now than they were 5 or even 10 years ago. Whereas the other people who would tell me, no, keep going, dude. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Those are people that tend to do things in the world. They tend to make things happen. They tend to have a vision or where they're moving forward. So I started thinking about who am I actually listening to in my life when it comes to advice, and who should I be listening to? And it was really mind-opening, or mind-blowing, or both of them. The other thing, obviously, the guy has no arms and legs, and yet he's climbing the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Insane. So insane, right? The thing that really got to me that made me start crying the other day was when it was that part where he's like taking a break, and he had said, the most frustrating part of today, or the most frustrating part of this is looking and seeing the summit and just keep, I'm thinking about how far away it is, how much farther I have to go. And he's like, when in reality, I should be turning around and I should be looking at how far I've come. He's like, I do that a lot in life. you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, that just hit me. I was like, that's totally true. That's totally true. I rarely ever turn around to actually see how far I've come, because I feel like there's nothing inherently wrong. Obviously, I think that having goals and having things that you want to accomplish is a good thing, right? But when you become so fixated on just getting that thing done, it can be very frustrating. And when you don't turn around and actually look at how much growth you've had, or how much things have changed, or how much you've persevered, or how much you've overcome, it's very easy to just get fixated on that goal. And then you hit that goal, and then what? Then you got to come up with another goal, because that feeling of like feeling good about yourself almost goes away. It's almost like the goal itself isn't really the thing that you're striving for. It's that growth to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Again, I'm not saying that goal setting isn't a good thing. We shouldn't all have things that we want to accomplish, or people, you know, we want to help and stuff like that. But it really was an eye-opener for me to think, man, yeah, you're right. I rarely actually turn around and see how far I've come, like on a journey. And the third thing is this, is I think he would have quit if he didn't have the soldiers' ashes with him. I really do. But he knew that he wasn't just doing it for himself, that there was something bigger, that he was actually, that this mission Kilimanjaro was about. It wasn't just about him. It was about bringing someone else up there to the top. And so I started thinking, well, who am I bringing to the top with me? When I do things in life, is it just for me, or is it to make other people's lives a little bit better? Or is it to inspire people, or whatever it is? I think that when we stop focusing on ourselves and necessarily what we want to do, and start thinking about other people and figuring out how we can get them to where they want to be, you magically could just find yourself at the top, because you're almost doing it not necessarily for you, but you're doing it for like a bigger reason. You know, I started thinking about mile 2, and what's really interesting is that when the leaders have been sitting down lately, I'm gonna throw us all under the bus, is we've been talking about like why we like the idea of mile 2 and what it means to us. But I'm like, why are we focusing on us though? Why are we not focusing on the people that we're trying to help, the people that we're trying to connect with? Why are we so focused on why we like what we do, instead of what do other people need from us? What do other people need mile 2 to actually be? Not what do I want it to be, what other people need it to be. And maybe that's something that, maybe that's just me. I don't know, I haven't really brought this up with any of the leaders, but it's really interesting that I've been focusing on me. Why do I like mile 2, and why do I want to do it? When I think the question I should be asking myself is, well, why should we be doing this for other people? What do they need? What have they been hurt by? What have they experienced in church and stuff like that? Maybe if we start looking at what other people need and try to get them to the top of the mountain, we're going to find ourselves at the top. We won't quit. We won't get to the point where it gets hard, and so we stop, because we realize that this mission isn't just about us. Move aside from mile 2 for a second and just, you know, think about it individually. I think every single one of us are either in one of 3 places, maybe more than that. I think a lot of us are not even on a mountain right now, and we're looking at a mountain, and we're trying to figure out if we should actually get up and start going to the top. Because it's really scary, because if you're at the bottom and you look at how far you have to go, it can be very easy to say, you know what, I'll do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks becomes 2 months, and 2 months becomes 2 years. And you never actually take the first step, because you're like, I have so far to go. So some of us have mountains that we want to climb, and we haven't even taken our first step. Others of us are actually on the mountain, and we are halfway, kind of like Kyle Maynard, and we keep looking at the top and thinking, man, I have so much farther to go, when in reality we should be turning around and think about how far we've come and find inspiration from that. I think some of us actually are at the top of a mountain, and we don't want to help others get to the top. We figured I got to the top, I worked hard and all of that, and so now I'm just going to enjoy the summit, not realizing there are some other people that are still standing at the base of the mountain, freaked out to take that journey, other people who are halfway, and I think our job is to find a new mountain to start climbing with other people. Again, I think there's maybe more places on the mountain you could be, but I think that's a good, you know, analogy for where a lot of people fit. Some people are just freaked out to take the first step. Some are halfway, they're having difficulty getting to the top. Some of us got to the top and said, well, you can't get to the top? Well, that's your own fault. That's your own fault, because I got to the top, so you should be able to get to the top. I don't really like that, you know, type of mentality. I really think that it should be, hey, I got to the top, so here, let me help you, show you how to get there. I think we're all at different spaces on that mountain. And I think some of us, once we get to the top, maybe it's time to tackle a new mountain then. Maybe we got to get to the base of another mountain and say, okay, how am I going to do this? Again, I don't know where everyone is necessarily at, but I think some of us start having to take that first step. Some of us have to turn around and look back and see how far we've come. Some of us have to go back down the mountain to help others up. And some of us just need to start new mountains. So that's all I really got for today. So why don't we go ahead and pray. Before I do though, sorry, this is what I wanted to talk about too. Sorry. We'll pray in a second. I think the reason why a lot of people don't want to start the trek or get tired halfway has to do with our fear of failure. I think in our culture, we have taught our children and taught ourselves that failure is bad, right? If you get an F on an essay, that's bad, you're grounded. But what if we actually change that type of idea? Again, I talk with this about my students. What if instead of getting an F and getting down on yourself, you got an F and said, oh my gosh, look at how much I have to learn. This is going to be awesome. I got an F. Man, there's so much more for me to learn. Because what happens is when students get A's, they don't try anymore. They don't try to get any better. They just say, oh, I got what I needed to do, right? Then you give them a C and they're like, oh my God, a C is terrible. I'm like, no, a C is average. There's nothing wrong with average, but A is like excellent work. But I think I think we're really scared of failure, right? It doesn't feel good. Rejection doesn't feel good and all of that. But what's really interesting is that, I can't remember what I was reading, where it came from. But the reason why we're so fearful is actually genetic, right? If you actually go back way back in time, and you go back to, if you think about like the idea of like very first man of being, again, if you believe in evolutionary theory or whatever, like cavemen, right? If you were scared, you had two choices, fight or flight, right? We've heard of this before, okay? The people who fought usually died. And the people who ran were the people who survived, right? Because if there's something rustling in the bushes and you think it's like a squirrel to eat for dinner and it turns out it's like a tiger, you're gonna die. So what happened was all of us are descendants of people who are very fearful. It's really interesting, right? But now what's really interesting is that the majority of stuff that we get scared of every day is not life or death. It is, talking to your boss and being worried that he or she is gonna say something bad about you. Not life or death, right? It's about being rejected by a lover. Not life or death. The majority of stuff that we get scared of today has nothing to do with life and death like it used to, but it feels like it, right? And so it's almost like we have to fight that urge to run instead of just facing the fear because it's not life or death. It's not like, something's in the bushes, it's gonna jump out and kill you. But it feels like that because that's what genes have been passed down. We are ancestors of people who ran. And so we have to almost fight that urge to run all the time from the things that aren't life or death. I think that Kyle Maynard is someone who doesn't do that. I think Kyle Maynard is someone who actually had to teach himself how to fight that fear of failure, how to actually overcome it. 35 times in a row, he lost. Most people would have ran, but he didn't. And I think a lot of us have to start channeling that idea. I mean, the Bible is strewn with failures. That's all it is. It's just stories about failures over and over and over and over and over and over. I think the one Steve likes to use is, King David, the one that sent one of his soldiers to die so he could take his wife, that sort of thing. And basically God said, this is a man after, God's own heart. And it's like, what? Because again, these are people who failed, but yet they didn't let that failure stop them. They kept moving. They kept trying to get a little bit better, trying to get a little bit closer to God. The Bible is completely just filled with failures. But there are people who kept getting back up and kept moving forward and kept climbing up that mountain. Now I'm done. Okay, so I was like, that was one thing I really wanted to hit and I totally forgot. So Lord, we just thank you for being able to come together today. Obviously, the Borens are actually gone. The Nelsons are up. I think they're watching Kevin's play. So crazy that after all these years and all the time that Kevin was working in the theater and again, just part of the chorus and part of almost like the background. And then he goes to college and he gets the freaking lead role is just mind-blowing to me. I'm so proud of him. We all are proud of him, Lord, and just I pray that that we would maybe even take inspiration from that. Kevin's not someone who let failure, let that idea of not getting the role that he wanted keep him from trying to accomplish his dream, Lord. And so I pray that we would all take inspiration from that, and we would all support him in our own little ways. And so as we go out, Lord, as we get into Thanksgiving and we start getting into the season of slowing down and thinking about, what it actually means that your son came into the world to essentially put the world right again, I just pray that you would help us continue to grow, to continue to move out of our comfort zones, to continue to push ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be, because I truly feel that that's something that you want for all of us, is just to keep pushing and keep trying to get a little bit closer to what you see us as, which is just perfect and whole and wonderful. We ask all these things in your son's name. Amen.
Thank you for listening. For more information about miletwo Church, please visit miletwo.org.